That night, it started out like any other. I was in North Hollywood, streetlights flickering, the air a little cold, my car idling quietly by the curb. Uber was busy, and I had just completed 3 back-to-back rides. A good way to cover the week's rental fee. A notification came in. 1 new ride. Back then, Uber didn't tell you where the ride was headed. So yeah, I accepted. Roads were empty. I figured, why not? I drove to the pickup spot, a small hotel by the street. There was a guy out front, talking to a valet. As I pulled up, the valet handed the guy a phone. He took it, then walked straight to my car and got in the back seat. The moment I started driving, I knew something was off. This guy, slurring, talking all over the place, his head swaying slightly. I tried some small talk, just being polite. He mentioned football. I said, "Oh yeah, what team do you support?" No answer. I let it go, focused on the road. Then he started talking, again, this time more clearly, but also more terrifying. "I don't know how I got here. Who are you? Do you even know where you're going? How do you know where I live?" There was a pause. Then his tone shifted completely. "I'm a Crip. I'm from Compton. You a Blood. I'll kill you. But I love you, bro. I love everybody. But if you're a Blood, I'll kill you." At that moment, my whole body tensed up. I stared straight ahead, hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. I'm just a white dude from San Fernando Valley. I don't even fully understand how gangs work in LA. But one thing I knew for sure, this wasn't a joke. I didn't carry a weapon. I couldn't defend myself. And I definitely didn't want him thinking I was one of his enemies. I glanced at him through the rearview mirror. His stare was blank, but his eyes were wild, like someone caught between reality and total blackout drunk. Now we were on the 101 freeway. Late at night, I couldn't pull over. If I did, how would I get him out of the car? What if he freaked out? Uber's advice was, leave them and call the police. But it's not that simple. If I got out, what's to stop him from trashing my car? Or worse, attack me? I kept driving, my heart pounding, cold sweat running down my temples. All I could think was, just get him home, get out alive. The whole ride, he kept talking to himself, sometimes laughing, sometimes singing, sometimes muttering things I couldn't understand. Every time he said, "I'm a Crip, you a Blood," I just nodded slightly and acted like I didn't hear. And when he said, "But I love everybody, bro," I just replied, "Yeah, me too, bro, everyone." It felt like gambling with words. One wrong sentence, and it could all go south. Finally, we arrived in Compton. I eased on the brake. The streetlights were dim, and the houses looked like shadows. He sat still for a moment, then opened the door. I held my breath. He stepped out, but just as I began to pull away, he turned around and swung his fist at my rear window. It hit, but didn't break. I floored it, took the first turn, and parked a few blocks away. I sat there, silent, hands still shaking on the wheel, my heart still racing. I opened the Uber app. The only thing I could do, give him 1 star and write a comment. Passenger was heavily intoxicated, dangerous. I tried contacting Uber support. They said, "We'll review your report." Nothing happened. Days passed, and I'm pretty sure he's still on the platform, riding with someone else. That night changed the way I saw this job. It's not about the money, it's about survival. We drivers, we just want to work, make a living. But sometimes, we're stuck in a car with someone who could end our lives in an instant. And the worst part? We're alone. I remember telling this story to a fellow driver. He just chuckled and said, "You haven't had one pull a knife on you yet, bro." The scariest part. He wasn't joking. We all have stories like this. Some worse, some never told because who would even care? One night, a friend of mine picked up a rider who suddenly vomited blood all over the back seat. Instead of helping, the rider cussed him out when he tried to find a hospital. then ran off without paying the cleanup fee. Another time, someone tried to open the door mid-highway, said he felt trapped, when really, he just ordered the Uber himself. Over time, you stop being surprised, but that doesn't mean you feel safe. And what makes it harder is when the system doesn't stand by you. Uber, they care about stars. 5 stars. You're good. 1 star. Get ready for suspension. But what about us, those of us who have to hold back our fear, stay alert every night, praying we don't get someone like him again? I still remember his face. The way he said he loved everybody 1 second and threatened to kill me the next. Since then, I always tint my rear window. I keep pepper spray in my driver's side door, and I memorize every side street and alley I can use to escape if I ever need to. Because that night taught me one thing: you never really know who's sitting behind you, and sometimes all you can do is keep driving forward and hope you make it home alive. The night had started like most other holiday evenings. The city was dressed in lights. Storefronts were glowing. Plastic Santas waved in the breeze, and couples were walking arm in arm. Most people had already gotten home to be with family, opening gifts, sipping wine. But for drivers like me, holidays meant more rides, more drunks, more strange requests. I didn't mind. It kept my mind busy. Holidays hadn't been the same since the divorce. The kids were spending Christmas Eve with their mom. I had a small tree at home, barely decorated, and a frozen lasagna waiting in the freezer. I figured I'd drive until midnight. That's when the ping came in Katy. The pickup spot was familiar, a small corner store that stayed open late, usually a spot for late-night snacks or emergency medicine runs. She was standing just outside. The doors, no jacket, her arms folded tight over her chest, holding a plastic bag like it contained something precious. She looked tired, not the physical kind. The kind of tired that comes from trying to hold yourself together for too long. She sat in the back, no eye contact. Her fingers went immediately to the bag. Cold night, huh? She nodded but didn't say much. Then she started talking, light conversation. Asked if I liked driving on Christmas Eve. Said she didn't like being around family this year. Said she just wanted some time alone. I didn't push. People ride in silence for all kinds of reasons. The crinkling plastic drew my attention more than her words. The sound of tiny things dropping into her palm. M&Ms maybe. That's what it sounded like. She chewed fast, like someone trying to erase something with each bite. I remember thinking, that's an odd way to eat candy at a red light. I caught a glimpse through the rearview mirror. Her eyes were glassy, not red, just blank. There was a moment where she stared at nothing, just emptiness. Then she smiled. A tired, soft smile that didn't quite match her eyes. You ever feel like you're just done? Done with what? I asked. She shrugged. All of it. And that was it. She looked away. The rest of the ride was silent. Her drop-off was a small home tucked behind a set of townhouses, up a curved slope. No lights on outside. She got out without another word and walked up the path. No phone in hand, no key, just the bag. She didn't even look back. I stayed there for a moment, engine running. Something felt off, but what could I do? She didn't ask for help. She didn't say anything clearly alarming. She was just quiet. I went home that night feeling strange. The next morning, the boys and I jumped in the car for a quick grocery run. They were in high spirits, twins, age 7, full of Christmas energy. They started poking around the back seat. One of them held something up. Dad, look at this. I took it from him and felt my chest tighten. Not 1, but 2 pill bottles. Completely empty. The label, Diphenhydramine, 80 tablets, a strong sleep aid. Over the counter, yes, but in that quantity. My hands trembled. I snatched the second bottle. Same thing, same dosage. Also empty. She hadn't been eating candy. She had been swallowing sleeping pills, one after another, in my car, while making small talk. Without a second thought, I changed direction and headed straight to the police station. I don't even remember what I said to the boys. My heart was pounding. At the front desk, I placed the pill bottles down. Last night, I drove a passenger. Her name was Katie. She ate these during the ride. I didn't know. I thought they were candy. She was the last passenger. I have her drop-off location. I have the trip receipt. The officer didn't waste time. He asked for the address, noted the ride ID and the time. A unit was dispatched immediately. He said, "You did the right thing." I hoped so, but I couldn't shake the image of her walking into the darkness, that plastic bag clutched in her hand. Later that day, I contacted Uber. Through email, through the app. I explained everything. I even offered to send the police report once I had it. They didn't seem to care. Their responses were formulaic. Cold. "Thanks for your report. We are reviewing according to policy. No follow-up questions. No concern. No urgency." I asked, "Can you check her account? Is she still active? Has she taken any other rides?" Their answer, "We cannot disclose customer information." I wasn't asking for details. I just wanted to know, is she alive? Days passed. I followed up again. Same empty replies. Finally, I got a call from their security department. A human voice, at least. I repeated the story, gave them the police case number. "I've done all I can," I said. "If she dies and no one follows up, that's on you." They said, "We'll keep it on record." Nothing else. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her words in my head. "You ever feel like you're just done?" I wondered where she had been that day. What led her to that moment? Was it family? Abuse? Depression? Or maybe something worse? I would never know. The worst part, no one seemed to care. Not Uber, not anyone. I deleted my account that same week. If you can't treat your drivers or your passengers like people, I wrote in my final message, then you don't deserve my time. Weeks later, I still found myself driving through that same neighborhood. I'd glance at that hill, at the dark driveway, hoping maybe she's walking her dog. Maybe she got help. Maybe she realized someone out there cared enough to report it. But I never saw her again. Katie, wherever you are, I hope you're okay. That day, the sky over Brisbane slowly darkened. The air was warm, with a gentle breeze brushing through the city. As usual, Simon, an experienced bus driver, began his evening shift from the main terminal at South Bank. He wore his dark blue uniform, frayed around the collar, but always neat and clean. For over 15 years, he had driven through the city's streets, and that massive bus had become his second home. From his seat, Simon checked the mirrors, turned on the AC system, and opened the automatic doors. Passengers began boarding one by one. Students just out of school, office workers, elderly people, tourists, all part of his daily routine. Simon recognized a few familiar faces, and even greeted an elderly woman, who always sat near the front. Everything was going smoothly, until 6:06 p.m. When the bus stopped at the South Bank station, a tall, broad man climbed aboard. His hair was messy, his eyes bloodshot, and his gaze distant. He didn't say a word as he scanned his transit card and walked to the middle of the bus. Simon glanced back, instantly uneasy. But in this job, you learn not to judge people too quickly at first. The man sat quietly, head down, but minutes later, he grew restless. His legs shook, his lips mumbled. Then he stood and walked toward the front of the bus, near the driver's area. Simon turned slightly, trying to stay calm and friendly. "Can I help you with something, sir?" Simon asked. The man didn't respond. Instead, he stared at Simon, then suddenly shouted profanity. Passengers started turning their heads. The tension in the bus grew thick. Simon tried to de-escalate. "If there's a problem, I can stop at the next station." But what came wasn't a response. It was a punch. The man threw a fist straight at Simon's face. His head jerked to the side. Still gripping the steering wheel, Simon instinctively raised his free hand to shield himself. People screamed. Some passengers moved away. Others just froze. A young woman pulled out her phone and began recording. The man didn't stop. Blow after blow landed on Simon's head and shoulders. 5, 6 punches. The driver didn't fight back. He only tried to protect himself. Blood began to drip from his temple. Suddenly, the man stepped off the bus. Simon exhaled, relieved for a second. But just moments later, the man returned, only to deliver a final, violent punch, harder than the rest, crashing into the driver's divider, nearly hitting Simon's eye. Then, finally, he left for good. The bus was silent. Not a single passenger came to help. Some stared blankly. Others kept their eyes on their phones. Simon sat slumped. His hands were shaking. Blood still trickled down the side of his face. He finally pulled over, called the dispatcher, and reported the incident. Police were alerted, but by then, the attacker had vanished. That night, Simon sat in the ER of Brisbane General Hospital, with gauze on his forehead. His head needed stitches, his cheek was bruised. But the worst pain wasn't physical, it was the betrayal. Not by the attacker, but by the silence of those who watched it happen. The next day, the video of the assault went viral. It spread across Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Comments flooded in. "Why didn't anyone help the driver? Brisbane doesn't feel safe anymore. People just record instead of stepping in." News outlets picked it up. The footage was on every evening broadcast. Brisbane's Lord Mayor, Adrian Schrinner, issued a public statement. "This incident is deeply disturbing. No worker should ever experience violence at their job. The attacker endangered everyone on board. Brisbane is a friendly city, and this behavior does not represent who we are." But for Simon, those statements rang hollow. He sat in his apartment, holding a cup of tea he couldn't bring himself to drink. He kept seeing the attacker's face, the punches, the blank stares from the passengers. The days that followed were heavy. Simon didn't return to work immediately. He had nightmares. The sound of bus doors opening gave him anxiety. He avoided South Bank and muted the news when the incident was mentioned. The police continued to investigate. They collected CCTV footage, interviewed witnesses, and tried to identify the attacker. But no arrest was made in the first week. Simon began writing to the Transit Workers Union, voicing his concern. He proposed installing bulletproof dividers and panic buttons linked directly to police. But the responses he got from authorities were slow and filled with red tape. One of the most painful parts for Simon was his company's response. He received an email that sounded like a generic auto-reply. "We're sorry to hear about the incident. We'll investigate further. Thank you for maintaining your professionalism." No personal call, no visit, no sincere apology. 3 weeks after the attack, Simon finally returned to driving. He needed the job. He once loved it, or at least he used to. Now, every new passenger made him nervous. He checked his mirrors more often. He began reading faces, searching for nervous eyes, twitching hands, sudden movements. One evening, at the last stop, a teenage boy approached him. He wore a school uniform and carried a large backpack. "Sir, I saw the video of what happened to you. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I was on that bus. I was scared. But I know I was wrong for not helping." Simon looked at him, stunned. The boy continued, I've started taking self-defense classes. I promise, if I ever see something like that again, I won't just stand there." Simon nodded. For the first time since the incident, he smiled, even if just briefly. Now, Simon's story has become a symbol, not just of violence, but of the silence of those who watched. He's often invited to speak at community forums and local schools. He encourages people not to be bystanders, but protectors. He knows not everyone can physically intervene, but courage comes in many forms: pressing an emergency button, calling for help, even standing beside a victim. Brisbane remains a beautiful city, but stories like Simon's remind us that safety isn't just about cameras or policies. It's about our choices: to care or to stay silent.